The 39% increase in house prices since March of last year, we haven't seen that sort of a pace of increase around New Zealand since about 1982, when they increased about 35% in that year. So none of us really have any sort of up-to-date experience on what happens after you've had a big surge in prices like that. Well, hi again, everybody. We're starting to get some numbers coming out showing the housing market around New Zealand finally starting to slow down. And I know from experience, when this sort of thing happens, you start to get some people coming out of the woodwork predicting that prices are going to fall away strongly. And you'll also get some other people saying, oh, look, it's just a wee bit of a calm period, and then everybody's going to jump back into the water again. Well, I think the experience of all of us has been that we cannot predict what house prices are going to do. Nobody predicted a 39% average increase from March 2020 to where we are now. And as I started writing something about this earlier on today, it occurred to me, in fact, that the conditions we're operating in are the most unusual pretty much we have ever seen. So I'm just going to run through a simple list of factors here, which basically say, even with half of them, a third of them, maybe just one of these factors, you'd have to say forecasting house prices, complete dog's breakfast at the moment. Now, number of things. First of all, you've just seen the fastest pace of increase in fixed mortgage rates since fixed products first had appeared back in about 1990. How does that impact on people's willingness to borrow? Well, we haven't seen that pace of increase before, so we don't actually know. We've also seen a return to the tightest credit conditions since Rob Muldoon was Prime Minister of New Zealand. What impact exactly will that have? Well, it's definitely slowing down the market at the moment, but is there going to be an easing off as banks learn to handle the new rules? We're just going to have to see how that goes over time. We've also got the biggest boom in house supply in New Zealand since, in fact, before the Rob Muldoon was Prime Minister, so going back to the first part of the 1970s. And how many houses will actually get built given all the different constraints out there? Don't know. Speaking of constraints, we've got the lowest unemployment rate on record since those data started back in 1986. How much of a restraining impact will that have on new house supply coming forward? Anyone's guess, quite frankly, at the moment. The 39% increase in house prices since March of last year, we haven't seen that sort of a pace of increase around New Zealand since about 1982, when they increased about 35% in that year. So none of us really have any sort of up-to-date experience on what happens after you've had a big surge in prices like that. We've also got the highest pace of inflation in New Zealand since just before GST came into New Zealand in 1986. The current rate is 4.9%. It's probably going to get close to 6% fairly soon. Exactly what does that do to wages growth? People worried about their cost of living? Again, none of our models that we economists use can really handle that sort of a number there. So we're pretty much guessing on that one as well. We've also seen the greatest tightening up of rules on investors in residential property and landlords that we've ever seen in terms of healthy homes legislation, obviously the removal of deductibility of interest expense, bright line test, all that sort of stuff. So we're trying to figure out, what exactly does that mean? And then on top of all of that, you've got the greatest overruling of local council rules on housing intentions that we've ever seen in New Zealand. So exactly what does that mean when it comes to the number of new houses getting built over what period of time? The level of uncertainty out there is immense, and what I've learned over the years is when it comes to residential property, a long-term focus is what you have got to have, whether it's for the house you are buying to live in, to raise your family in, to retire in, or whatever, or whether it's from an investment point of view. You look at the long-term changes you expect to see coming along in that area, you have a look at your long-term needs as well, and you try not to get lost too much in the short-term movements in price. So keep a long-term focus, and as I might have said last week, for the first home buyers out there, good news out of all of this is that listings are finally going up. So remain engaged with the market there. You're going to find yourself some better purchasing opportunities through 2022. So all the best out there.